Hey everyone, and we are live. I hope everyone's having a fantastic fire day. See the flames? Well, I know there's no flames, but in our hearts there is fire and flames because today we've got a fantastic person on. Hey everyone, Vanessa Lane here with View It Do It. This is Brandy Holloway Holla with the Phoenix Factor, and we've got Doug Thompson online. Let me tell you, if you don't know Doug, LinkedIn, Instagram, you need to go check them out. Hey, Doug, how's it going?
Hey, good morning. I'm going to practice my Tierra Royal Wave today, if you haven't seen the LinkedIn post on that. So I'm doing wonderful.
Perfect. I'm going to give everyone just a little bit of bio about Doug. He said in his nearly 18 years at Microsoft, he's worked with partners such as Dell, HP, Panasonic, Sony. He's currently a principal technology strategist and AI ambassador for the education team, empowering every student on the planet to achieve more. Whew. Doug and his wife of more than 37 enjoy spending time with his 2 children and 6 grandchildren. You are blessed, Doug. He is also a semi-retired triathlete and is a 2-time Ironman triathlon finisher, boom, and a former board member for the Boys and Girls Club of Georgetown, Texas.
Wow.
It's amazing, huh, Brandy?
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
I got some living to do here.
I know, me too. Doug, you are blessed. What an amazing already journey in your life. Tell everyone at home who hasn't met you, who hasn't followed you, and they need to on LinkedIn, a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I covered the bio makes me sound a lot more impressive than I am. Grew up in Southeast Texas, Texas boy most of my life. Spent 9 years wandering around in the wilderness in Chicago and Seattle before I got back to Texas. You can take the boy out of Texas, you can't take Texas out of the boy. So I always brought a little bit of that with me on that. I guess we should move the whole Ironman thing. That was I just like to suffer. I like a lot of alone time to do that, but it was rewarding at the time. I may actually have to be retired now. I don't know, but I'm still breathing, so I just call it semi-retired.
Yeah. You know, my form of triathlon is walking up the stairs. Does that count?
Yes, as long as you have wine. That's you have to have 2 sports.
Well, then I am definitely a triathlete. I'm in it to win it.
100% on board. So, Doug, we're gonna talk a little bit about the AI. So, tell us a little bit about that. That's intriguing.
Well, you know, it is, and it's to some people it's scary. A lot of people overestimate what it can do. And my job as an ambassador is sort of evangelize what our perspective on artificial intelligence is. You know, on the one end, you have Skynet, which nobody wants. We're rebooting that again, I think, for the 85th time coming up on that. And the other end, you got something as simple as, you know, I've got on my truck, I've got a key fob when I go in and adjust the seats, you know, makes it nice and air conditioning on my Tushy in Texas. So, you know, you got both ends of the extreme of that. And a lot of it is not as scary as we make it to be. But it also has real impact, and there's some ethics that needs to come into play on do you really, even though we can do something with robots or artificial intelligence, should we? You know, what's the greater impact on society? So I sort of ask those questions. I talk to our customers about it, and it's really exciting because it's constantly changing. Every day there's some new change to that. So be wary, I guess, is the best term to do from that.
Awesome. And as you're talking to people, that's what I want to segue into is what I see all that you're doing on LinkedIn is you're an amazing storyteller. And you use the power of story and who you are and your brand to really get across your message. And I know, Brandy, you're a big proponent of that as well, of telling stories. So tell a little bit about that hashtag storyteller side of you, Doug.
You know, it's something that I didn't know. You know, you ever have these talents where people tell you you're good, but you don't really know what it is? You know, this sort of comes natural to me. It's the way that I've always communicated since the early days. I had a high school reunion last year, and as I'm looking through some of the memorabilia they captured, there was this excuse for being tardy. And on the excuse, it said, you know, I was late because a Coke truck spilled all its Cokes on the freeway. And I wouldn't have believed it was me, except I recognized the handwriting. So even back in those days, I was able to tell stories. So it's been a latent thing that goes on. And as I've gone into my sales career, I've been a pre-sales engineer. That's another part of my role at Microsoft, is I need to be able to explain often very complex topics. And for example, the AI to people that understand business, like marketing or something like that. And I have to put it in their language. So the best way and the most powerful way I've found to do that is through stories. And to tell a good story, I need to meet my audience where they are, not necessarily where I am, to do that. So this also feeds into my sort of polymath. I like a lot of different things, and if by being able to have interest in a lot of different areas, I can usually find that connection point with just about everybody, and sort of build a conversation from there. I did a TED talk last week, a TEDx talk last week, and it was about storytelling. The most important one's the one we tell ourselves. That's a whole other thing. But as our brains are wired to receive stories, we learn better that way. If back in the days when we lived in caves and it was a very dangerous place, we had to figure out a way to relate stories to other people so that, hey, look, I saw Joe get stepped on by the mastodon yesterday. How do you avoid that? And we did it, through stories. So it's very impactful, especially when you're selling or just trying to get a message across. That's the power of stories, because we're wired to receive it that way.
That is so true. Brandy, what are your thoughts?
Well, especially with sales and marketing, because of course that's kind of my jam, is that telling your story also makes you relatable. And I think that's where you build that trust and rapport. And a lot of people don't understand that. They, being vulnerable or being transparent, which some of us still shy away from, that's really what it is. I think everyone is a salesman. I think I've always said I could sell ice to Eskimos. I can sell anything, but I have to be relatable to the person. Am I solving a problem? Am I creating a solution?
Exactly. Perfect. Hey, Doug, when you're trying to reach out to people, or people are trying to say, hey, I don't know how to tell my story. I don't even know where to begin. Where do you tell them to begin? Where to start?
I ask a lot of questions to get them to realize they've been telling stories all along. They've been doing it. It's one of those unconscious type things is once you unlock and point out the things that they're doing, is there. And I'll start with, like, for example, I mentor some master's students out at the University of Texas. And one of the things is we're going through, like, in an interview, to quote Brandy's right. If you read Daniel Pink, to sell is human. We all sell. 9 out of 10 jobs have to do selling, whether it's a product, a service, or a concept. You're on a team, you're negotiating, hey, I think this way of solving a problem is better than this way. You have to sort of sell that, so the stories are the best way to do that. But in that case there, I sort of walk them through, tell me about something when you were a kid. And if you go, again, going to their frame of reference, we all have memories of something that, as we get older, we forget where they are. They're at the theater down the street, or we don't remember where they are. But sort of go to where they are, get them to realize that they have that story to tell. And maybe it's something that they don't think's related. And then I sort of try to figure out a way, how do we tie that into you or selling something that you do, or what makes you unique from that standpoint? So it's just a little bit of, to me, it's obvious on the outside. And I'll be honest with you, I am probably the worst at being able to tell you what my story is on the inside. I have other people and sort of listen to feedback from other people, because I live with myself 24/7. I don't think I'm remarkable at all. I know what my flaws are. I know what my vulnerabilities are. And I look at other, great speakers and say, boy, that's really cool. But, we're sort of our own worth judgment, but I try to shine a light on things that they can then build upon. So it's getting sort of that base level type thing and build upon that.
Perfect. Thoughts, Brandy?
Well, in response to that, because I also coach people with that, I would say define remarkable. A lot of times I think we're not able to see those things in ourselves that we see in others because we define it differently for others. We hold others to a different standard than we hold ourselves to. And your story can really open up when you change that definition.
It really can. And I agree, Doug, that telling our own story is sometimes the most challenging. Being aware of who we are or where we are, that changes, and our story changes. And so does people's brands. The story changes over time. Where do you see the storytelling aspect as as social media, as technology, because you are in that technology sphere, as technology is changing, and we're now having our children and the children of our children where they grew up not knowing anything but technology. They have a different look at what reality is really like, and instead of communicating via phone anymore or going and having coffee, we're now doing everything virtually. Do you think that's going to impact the nature of how we talk to people?
I see that a lot in, working on the education team. I have kids all the way from kindergarten all the way up to through college. And some of the biggest challenges I see, you hit upon it, is things that we were forced to do because you had a phone or you had to go meet somebody in person. I say forced. That's just the way it was done, at the time. They don't. They'll go to text, or they'll do something else, or very few people actually use a calling plan anymore. It's all based on text and all that. I learned that from my kids. If I call them, they don't answer, I don't leave a voicemail. They're not going to listen to it. They'll text me back later. I've been taught, old dog, new tricks type thing. But it's really somewhat of a shame. And I think video, the advent of video and all that is a powerful tool, and it's as close to real time as you can get. It's sort of like this here. If we were this was an audio podcast, it wouldn't be nearly as possible seeing facial reactions and different things. You can see into a person by watching them. So the ability to use video to tell a story is I think, is going to be critical for, that's the next generation of this, if you will, short of the internet going down and us having to go back to face.
Thoughts, Brandy?
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know if you guys actually saw the video that Gary Vee put out the other day. Excuse me, but he was actually saying that video influencers on all the social media platforms actually have more influence than celebrities now on the younger generation. And so knowing that, depending on what business you're in and understanding what that influence is, which is why we strongly urge everyone to get their what's on social media and do the videos and tell the story and get comfortable with it. So
I do. And I want to give a quick shout out. We've got Amanda watching. Hey, Amanda, thanks so much for watching. Michelle Nagel-Doy. Hey, Michelle. Brian Hardenstein. Hope I pronounced that right, Brian. Thanks for watching. You have any questions? Hey, Peter, thanks for watching. I want to pose a question to you now, Doug. We talked a little bit about the social media, we talked a little bit about video, we talked about a little bit of storytelling. Do you find that as we are in the age of technology and things are only going to progress a little bit more, and who knows where it's going to go, do you find that as more people get courageous with their voice, that we're also not being as accepting, almost judgmental at times? I find that sometimes that people are sometimes saying things online that they would never say to your face. And that's what's a little bit disturbing. What are your thoughts, Doug?
No, I totally agree with that. There's a certain anonymity that goes on behind the screen, and you see it in text. I mean, we had a joke earlier about something that somebody posted to Brandy's thing earlier. It takes a real big person to do that. When I was growing up, we'd drive down the road, and I was the big man on campus. I'd yell at people through the car window. The window was up, so they'd never be able to hear me. They could see my face. But that's the challenge. And I see there's two challenges. One is you now get critics at scale. Before, when you were in a one-to-one conversation or smaller groups, it was only a few people. Now it's at scale. It's around the world. You never know when they'll see it. You'll never know what they want to talk about or anything like that. So that's the bigger risk. And it takes, as we tend to be our own worst critic as these things come across, it takes more courage or the ability to discern or to let those comments go and not let them define you. You have to sort of define yourself. So haters are going to hate. Now they just hate at scale. So how do you then manage that? That is going to be a critical skill that goes on. Another thing that I find that's challenging for those that are creators is that you have to be yourself. If you watch my videos, they're very much usually done in one take. There's very few edits and stuff on that. It's very much a stream of consciousness that comes across. It's sort of ironic because those those content pieces I plan out. I mean, oh, this would be a great idea. And I work on it for weeks and I shoot it. And I said, this is a great message. It's going to go, those get the least amount of views. Rather than one I just shot the other morning where I was at the beach when I was on vacation. I had the sun behind me. It was one of my mindset ones. I was just like, I'm recharging myself. This is me in that moment. There was no editing, really shot in 20 seconds, put up there. And that got a lot more traction than in the other. So it's sort of weird. It wasn't that I'm not myself in these things that are well planned, and not to say you don't need to plan a theme, but it was almost overproduced. It wasn't it didn't come across as the me, which is a little bit off the cuff, a little bit raw, a little bit unpolished. That's the way that I try to come across, and you two can tell me if that's the way that I am.
I think that's accurate.
So what about for you, Brandy? What hits the mark for you?
As far as the people talking about the haters, I mean, he said, we discussed that earlier. I had someone on my Instagram Live. I grew thick skin, luckily, before all of this stuff came along anyway. It fuels my fire, but I know a lot of people don't have that, mindset right now. But I always remind everyone that when you get these haters, two things. If you don't have haters, you're probably not doing something right. I mean, that's just the truth. And if you don't have at least 5 people trying to copy you, you're probably still not working hard enough, right? Because that's just where we are these days. I take it as a compliment. And just because someone says something doesn't mean you have to accept it. So we deal with that day in and day out. Now, we all, of course, are grouped together on LinkedIn. I don't see a lot of that on LinkedIn. Even if someone has something negative to say, I feel like they're still somewhat professional about it. But on the other platforms, some people can get pretty nasty on there. But they also have the block button.
Use it generously.
Use it generously. Hey, we got some more people online. Hey, Stuart, if you have any questions for Doug, please shout out. Thanks again, Amanda, for watching. Michelle, Peter, Brian, thanks so much for chiming in. It is true. It's an interesting place where we are right now. And I think you're right. Sometimes we can plan content out and plan and plan and plan. And sometimes it's those moments that just happen where we're not intentionally trying to do anything different, but subconsciously maybe some extra walls break down. And we can see through even further into somebody. They're letting us in even more into who they are or their story. What do you think we're going towards? Are we going towards a society of things that are more raw? Or do you think there is a place for produced stuff and you can marry and merge the two between the authentic self, Doug, and that story and a produced, polished application as well?
Good question.
Yeah, definitely on that one. There's, if I'm going to pay for something, I want the production value and I want the stuff to be really up there. You're paying for it. You don't want to just think they showed up that morning. Oh, we'll just throw this together and go. That's an investment you put in. Trying to share a personal story or a point or something like that. I think we want to know you. It gets into more knowing the person type thing, rather than, okay, here's a course that I've got and I'm going to teach you how to tell a story. I would put some work in to produce content that was very professional. Now,
Yes.
The way I deliver it each time may be very different. I'm very much in the moment, sort of, here's the point I want to cover. And then based on who the audience is, if I know something about them, I'll try to tailor it. As I said before, I'll try to tailor it to them, but the overall message will be the same. So yes, I think and use it appropriately, but if everything you're trying to do and get people to know you is very polished and very produced and all that, to me, that sort of sets off the alarm bells that you're hiding something. You're not being your true self. You're trying to be something that you're not.
Brandy?
Well, I have to throw something in. This is really funny because, and obviously meant to be. So I typically, when we're doing these, I listen to podcasts sometimes. I read a book every morning. I try to do something every day to feed my mind. And I've been binging on Angie Lee, and I don't know if if you guys are familiar with her, but she's a riot. She's super young, but she knows what she's talking about. She's multi-millionaire now. But she said one thing, and it really cracked me up. When you're creating these stories and you think you have to be polished and you're comparing yourself to all these other people, like for me, I mentioned her, I'm 46. I think she's 26. I've got 20 years on her, but she knows so much more just because she dug in and did that. It's not because of the age. It's just where we were. So she made the statement, she goes, everyone poops. And I was like, what? And she says, everyone poops. But if you think about it, you got to take them out of this la-la land, dreamland that we put them in, and be relatable. So she has the polished videos, but she also has unpolished, and we've talked about that. I love coming off the cuff, but that's my thing. You make amazing videos where, it looks polished, and, you have the filters and the green screen, and I think because you teach people that, I think it's super important. I don't think it would matter as much for me. I don't teach video like that.
Right. It is something, the comparison is what Brandy calls it, the comparison coma. We all can do that. We can all second guess ourselves. And I've been one, my husband is shaking his head right now. We call him Oz behind the camera. He's like, oh dear Lord, here she goes. I think we can get in that rut, Doug, and I want to hear your thoughts of comparing ourselves to everybody else. I am very new to LinkedIn, and one of those things is I love doing polished things. Now, it doesn't take me very long, but that's kind of, and I'm quirky. I've got a red head. I'm fiery. Who knows what's going to come out of my mouth? It never, who knows really what's coming out of this mouth? And I embrace that. But I've been second guessing myself going, do I need just to get my cell phone out and just talk? And like my husband said, you're doing that thing, that comparison coma. Try out one thing religiously, and if it doesn't seem to work, you can try something else. But to Brandy's point, it is what I do, and I love doing it this way, and I'm passionate about doing this way, and it is my brand, so for me it works.
Yes.
But we get in that rut, Doug, of that comparison coma, that analysis paralysis, as Brandy calls it. What are your thoughts? How can we change our mindset when we start thinking that way, Doug?
No, that's a great point. And I would expect the videos coming from you to be polished and productive. Again, that's what your brand is. That's what you are. So no expectations. A little raw one and, coming out of the bathroom with bad hair may not be bad, but, that's just on occasion. But yeah, that's what you'd expect. You would not expect that to come from me. There would be something wrong. That's when artificial intelligence may have actually taken over for me, because they perfected that. So just beware. If I ever come across like that, I've been taken over and it's happening. Yeah, exactly. So I'll relate a story. I was one of my 20 years ago. So before I came to Microsoft, we were having a road. They called it a road show. This is back in the days when every mom and pop could build your computer down the road. And they pulled these trainers from all. I used to be a trainer for very serious back-end technology, and they pulled us all in a room, and we were going to practice to do this road show that went around to 20 cities. And in there were like 10 of us. And one of these persons was I call him the professor, because he had the jacket on with the felt elbow pads and was very polished when he came across and spoke. It was very, and I like that style. I can appreciate that style. And I found myself trying to emulate it. You probably see where this is going, just based on who I am. But I tried, and I was just frustrated. I kept failing. I kept doing these other things. And I got to the end of the day, and I'm talking to my wife, and I'm saying, look, I don't belong here. I'm failing miserably at this. And she said, you have to be you. So go out there tomorrow and just be you. So I went out there, and it was all over the place. It was a little bit like Robin Williams meets Mike Rowe going on the set on that one. And I left, and they said, they said, look, you've got to do half of it. You were the best one there. And it was because I was doing that comparison to something that I liked. Now, I can appreciate art of all different types, but it's not necessarily me. I have to have a bit of that craziness and spontaneity that goes on with it. And so to your point, when you get in that comparison, you're setting yourself up to fail. Now, it's not to say that you can't improve upon yourself. We're our own worst critic. I was talking to some people about the talk I did Friday, and I said I gave myself a C minus, C plus, B minus on that. But again, the story I had in my head was a Vanessa Lane production on stage. It was very smooth. It was going on, but it came out somewhere like Robin Williams, just sort of riffing on some things at different. I have no idea what said. I usually know that when I have a good session, I have no idea what I said, because I was so much in the minute doing it. I can't play it back. So I'm waiting to see sort of when they do the submission, the edits and stuff. But to your point, yes, it's hard. You have to be conscious of it, and you have to sort of, this is all told to you by what I call the inner bully. We all have one of these bullies that sort of go in and just tell us that we stink. and it comes out of our subconscious trying to protect us. Again, I'm sort of giving you the inside to my TED talk, but it's we're natural, we're wired that way, and negativity, unfortunately, is the human state. We're naturally sort of negative or scared or something that's built into our nature, and we have to be conscious and overcome it. So I think some of the stuff like Brandy was saying earlier about reading every day, about feeding the mind. I start off the day with 20 minutes of meditation that just sort of centers me when I'm going to go in then attack the day as it comes. But I've found since I've been doing that and being a little bit more mindful about it, I've been able to stop that comparison, sort of catch it early. I mean, it's still on, it still, happens, but just be conscious of it. We all have it. And that's why I think some of the rawness of some of the videos come across, lets other people know that, hey, nobody's perfect. We all have this.
Brandy, your thought on that?
Well, and I also, just in addition, is that we also have to realize a lot of us, it's a learned behavior to be negative, or to be hard on ourselves, or to not have that confidence, acceptance and self-worth. For me, that was the case. So it, like I said, it took me a long time to get there and figure that out. So when you're telling yourself that story, I always, when I'm talking to clients, I'm like, but who said that? Like, who's really saying that? And a lot of us try to push the voice out, and I say, you know what, invite it in. Have a conversation, and that's your video right there. Have that conversation, be relatable in that way. We had a girl stand up the other night, she was about to pass out because she was so nervous speaking in front of a crowd. But once, the girls grabbed a hold of her and she started telling her story, we were like, that's your story. There's so many other women out there that don't have confidence or they're introverted. And now that you're talking about it and being open off the cuff, those are your people.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I think you both hit on something. Doug, you said that you have to be mindful of things, but also be confident in yourself. And Brandy made a comment earlier about sometimes you just have to let things go. And a little story, a couple weeks ago, I had a really dear friend of mine reach out, and we talked a little bit, and she told me on the phone that my Instagram videos absolutely turned her stomach and repulsed her. And let me tell you, it really stopped me for a minute and made me very sad for a minute. And she said that she thought that all I wanted out of life was fame and fortune. And then I really took a pause. And when I got home, normally, Doug, it would have really hurt for days and days and days. And what I realized is, also by listening to Doug and also seeing positive people and seeing things other in my life, it really made me realize that not everybody is part of my tribe, and sometimes people change, and sometimes people do change apart. They don't stay in the same lane, and that's okay. But like you said, you have to be confident in listening to your voice and listening to what you're passionate about, and also being open and honest that we are our hardest critics, but we have something to say, and if somebody doesn't like it, that's okay, because they're entitled to their opinion. Thoughts, Doug?
No, you're exactly right. I mean, I don't agree with everything that everybody else says. So why should I expect everybody to agree with what I said? And I think Brandy hit upon it earlier. If you're trying to please everybody, you're going to please nobody with that, because the people that message does resound with will appreciate you and really understand you better. And those that don't, like I said, Vanessa, you talked about growing apart or just sort of having different, we're all on this different journey. And there was Tim Ferriss had a book, Tribe of Mentors, and he was interviewing Terry Laughlin, who did some teaching of swimming technique, which I really appreciate. It made freestyle a lot easier. But he talked about we're all on this journey to mastery of something, and it's a continuum. We will die before we get to be a master of anything. Even the gurus have more to learn about other things. And it's about knowing that we're all on this journey. There's some behind us and some in front of us, and we need the responsibility of those in front of us are to help those behind them, just as our responsibility is help those behind us on this journey. And sometimes, some people just don't make the journey with you, but that's okay. And it takes some time to be able to do that. And the problem is if you hold on to that, then it just totally destroys you from the inside, because it's like cancer that comes in, and you have to let that go. And you have to sort of come in, or you'll never be able to sort of rectify it with yourself.
Exactly. Hey, I'm going to give a quick shout out. Hey, Rich Cardona. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Hey, Jerry, thanks for popping in. What do you think of it, Randy? I know this
Well,
sets
first
with
of all,
you.
I didn't even know that happened. I'm going to kick her ass, whoever it is. I'm just kidding. But no, like when you hear those things, truly, I wrote a quote about this a while back, is that a lot of times when we're doing things and people see us stepping out of our comfort zones, it makes them uncomfortable because they're not willing to do the same. So I say you cast a light on a part of them that they're not ready to deal with yet, right? So at one point, especially with friends, they see you as you're on this equal level, whether it be business professionals that you work with, co-workers, and then all of a sudden when you decide to level up or step up and step outside, this is what I've been dealing with too. You know that a lot of people are not in my circle anymore because, you know, I'm like, you're just not my people anymore, and that's okay. So their opinion, you know, like Doug's saying, is their opinion. We have our own, but I think that what happens when people say things like that is they're like really going, I could never do that.
Right. Exactly. The story, Doug.
No, I would agree with that.
Go ahead.
Well, sorry. I would agree with that. And it's somewhat, I've heard it described as the crabs in a bucket syndrome, where one crab tries to get out and all the rest of them will kill themselves
Yes.
trying to pull them back down.
Right, right.
I haven't heard of that, but that is a great visual. I think it needs to be a post, actually.
All right, let's do it.
Ooh, could be. Could be. We could cross share. Doug, for anybody that is having a hard time getting started, and because they're apprehensive about what's going to come out or what they're going to say, maybe they don't like video, is there a place to start, baby steps, in which to be more open and being able to tell your story? Are there baby steps for someone that really is just green as can be on social media and is just stepping their toe really into the pond?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of different avenues that you could take. You know, there are groups of people that like to get together in the local area. I know there's a few of us around here, and we're sort of exploring that. But start with you know, I go back to the kids. The first people that I acted with were my parents or my friends around. Right, start with a small trusted group of people that want to do that. Just you know, or like on if you're on Facebook and you're not open to everybody on there, it's a smaller group. You can sort of venture out to do that. A YouTube channel, some people may stumble across it on that. You don't have to go big production, but just realize everybody. You know, if I go back and look at my first videos and I look at the production, I say, man, I've come a long way since that. But don't take yourself too seriously. On the other hand of that, we all get out there. The big ones that you'll have to overcome is that inner voice in your head trying to say, no, don't do this, you'll die, or something like that will come on. My favorite tactic to do when that comes on is I start to call their bluff. And I said, what's the worst that can happen? What'll happen if I do that? So I make a video and nobody sees it. I've made a video. I can watch it and go on and I can build upon that. So it's just getting that mindset. I'm going to do it. I'm going to jump off the bridge, if you will. What's the worst that can happen? Nobody sees it. Somebody doesn't like it. Hey, well, at least I posted a comment. It was an article on LinkedIn, and I had somebody challenge me on it because at the time I was sort of challenging some of the mindset of some IT directors of, well, we've always done our management this way, and I challenged them to think differently about it, holding into account that they manage their PCs differently than they would their phone on that. But anyway, I had somebody challenge it. It says, not everybody's done this. And I reached out and I embraced it and I quizzed him. I asked why. First of all, I thanked him for commenting on it. He engaged. He took time out of his day, even if it was a disagreement, to embrace that. Okay, let's see. Let's really dig down into this. Actually, he ended up going down to San Antonio and met him for coffee. And we had these other times. By the time I got there, he'd sort of realized I had some point on it. But we've carried that conversation on. So, at least if somebody does it, even if it's a negative one or disagreeing, they took the time to do it, invested time to comment. Granted, Brandy, the comment earlier didn't take much effort, but if it's a meaningful disagreement, some great things can come out of it.
Brandy?
Yeah, no, I mean, I welcome them all as well. And I think that why do we actually engage and why do we comment? Because, we want to have these conversations and build these relationships. And going back to what we were just saying, doesn't mean everybody's going to agree. And look what turned, just out of that simple conversation. I used to need everyone to agree. I used to need that as an acceptance factor. For me, I think once you get over that hump too, you'll see it's healthy to get into, how do we learn? How do we learn what's right from wrong, or, what is true and what isn't true? We got to have those conversations.
Right, and not to worry, again, about the comparison coma. How many people are we commenting today? I know that's the big thing. Oh, I've got to do this many posts and this many comments. I would rather give one comment that I was honest and truthful about and took time to read the entire post or listen to the entire video and put my heart into commenting authentically than worry about, oh, I didn't hit 50 comments today. I would rather have that one authentic comment with someone in that one conversation rather than having 50s of just hitting the thumbs up as I'm scrolling by. Thoughts, Doug?
No, I agree. The vanity metric thing is sometimes a death trap. We all need to measure if something's successful or not on that to different ways. And mine's it's harder to quantify because I think it's the quality of engagement that I get out of a post that tells me that it's better than simply like I said, the number of thumbs up or applause or whatever. I finally got that, by the way. Yeah, you'd figure since I'm like on the beta, I get things last. But it's that quality of the engagement. Did that ring a bell? Did that hit something with somebody? And that's how I measure success on it, rather than simply the vanity metrics. There was a theme going on about one of the big influencers here was bragging, got 40 jobs for somebody over the last year, and he's got a couple million. Really, what's that metric, right? People that don't say anything, they got more for that. But so it's hard. It's don't get caught in it. You have to measure it somehow to see if it's being successful. If you're not getting any comments on it, then that's probably a good indication that you're not doing something right and maybe need to adjust. But don't get caught up in I need to have 1,000 likes and stuff on that. To me, that's sort of a trap.
Right, Brandy.
Yeah, I would say kind of what a KPI and the ROI are for those things. What's the whole point of you commenting? Everyone has a different reason. For me, I'm looking for a certain amount of engagement, ratio of engagement. If I don't see it, and ironically, I love doing the videos, but hands down, when I put my text out, when I write an article, I get 300% more engagement. So I know what works for me. I took the time to figure that out, but I know I need to continue to put some of the video out. And I could talk for 30 minutes on a video, which now we're being rewarded for that, luckily, because Instagram and Facebook has switched over to build community. They want us to keep people on the platforms longer, so they want us to make those longer videos, which, I'm working on that as well. I just put one out this morning. But I think it's really important for everyone to remember those vanity metrics really do not matter on any of the platforms anymore. So the influencers, if they're not putting out value, they're just showing their abs and their high heels and their makeup, I think they're going to go down.
Well, and we both know people in the industry where they may have 100,000 followers and they're having a lot of likes, but there is no call to action. They're not getting anything from it. They're getting everybody to like their Instagram posts like crazy. But at the end of the day, there are no sales that come with that. And like you said, Doug, it's the vanity metrics. What do you want? Do you want the number of likes or do you want the conversions? Do you want the real engagements back and forth? It goes for all of us. We all have needs too. We all have things that we buy as well. What is driving us to buy things as well as driving others to buy from us? So we're going to do some quick rapid fire things now, Doug. So because you are in Texas, what is your favorite food?
Oh, it's got to be barbecue.
Yes.
So Texas barbecue or?
Smoked brisket. If you put a sauce on it, you're doing it wrong.
There used to be a place, I know you're in Austin, so I'm not sure if they're down there, but there used to be a place in Fort Worth and Houston, and it was literally called Taco Diner, but it was a little more upscale, and they had the best brisket tacos ever.
Yeah, the breakfast tacos, that may be a Texas thing on that, but breakfast tacos are sort of a staple on that. It's something that I've really gotten attracted to. There's a bunch of, I mean, it's the Dunkin' Donuts of Texas food, if you will.
Corn tortilla or flour?
Flour.
Okay.
A good flour one that's got a little thickness to it that was fresh made, it just melts in your mouth. You can't beat that.
Beer, no beer?
Yes.
Yes.
Type of beer.
I like beer. So I actually like a porter or a stout. I like the real heavy stuff on that when I'm having it. But also like wine. I like a nice Sangiovese, a nice cab and stuff on that one. So, you know, I've got the city Doug and then I've got the country Doug. So we're all good.
I can roll with that.
And you can meet in the middle somewhere. Are you
Exactly.
dessert or no dessert?
If I stood up, you could answer that question. It would be self-explanatory. So might as well eat it first because I'm going to eat it anyway.
So your decadent choice, what is your go-to dessert?
Banana pudding.
So Mark, you can't see him, my husband behind the camera, he's doing this motion. He's doing
I've got a
the
great
Breakfast
recipe I
Club
can share with
motion.
you. I got a great recipe I'll share with you.
Ooh, Sherry, yeah, I love banana pudding.
All right, do you have any more questions, Brandy, online for Doug?
No.
Where can everyone find you, Doug? Because that's the important part. We want them to connect with you online.
Well, I am the Doug Thompson on just about all the platforms. Anybody could be a Doug Thompson, but I wanted to be the Doug Thompson. It gives me something aspirational to constantly attend. And there's some comedian, there's some musician type, you know, lawyer anyway. But you know, LinkedIn is where I'm most active. Instagram, I'm still trying to figure out. I could probably use some lessons, Brandy, on that. So I may be hitting you up on that one. But LinkedIn is where I spend the majority of my time to do that. You know, I'll share the link of my TED Talk when it comes up. To your point, going back to metrics real quickly, when I finished the talk, I got off and there was one guy that came up to me afterwards and I could see on his notes, he had taken notes. I only had 2 slides. He had actually drawn the picture of both slides that I had on there and asked me some follow-up questions about going on. And if I can impact one person out of something that I've done, then I consider that successful. You know, more than that's gravy, but if I can impact that one person to think or do something differently, then you know, for me, that's a reward.
Agreed. I wanted to give Andrea Gaines a quick shout out because she's on as well, and Luke Williams.
Hey, Luke. Hey, Andrea. It has been an honor and pleasure, Doug. Everybody watching, I hope you have thoroughly enjoyed getting to meet the Doug Thompson. Please follow him on LinkedIn, on Instagram. If you've noticed, though, he's a fantastic storyteller because throughout the entire 45-minute conversation, we have heard amazing stories, relatable stories about him and who he is. Please go and follow him, Doug. It has been our honor and our pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us on this Fire Day. And for Tim Allison, if you're watching, I did have the extinguisher, just so you know. If the heat got too much, we were going to blow it at the camera virtually, and it would have made an impact, just so you know, Tim Allison. Thank you, Doug, so much for being on with us. Our pleasure.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
This has been an amazing Fire Day. We've talked to the Doug Thompson again. Go and check him out on LinkedIn, on Instagram. This is
Brandy Holloway
with the Phoenix Factor and Girls on Fire. She is making waves. You need to check her out. Follow her as well on all of the platforms. Let me tell you, and I'm Vanessa Lane. View it, do it. We are lighting it up on Friday, and we will see you next Friday for some more heat. See you next time. Bye.